Good evening. Yorkshire's seen one of the biggest increases in England in the number of people being detained under the Mental Health Act. Since 2012, there's been an increase of almost 23%. That's compared to a national increase of 15%. More than 1,500 people in Yorkshire were subject to detention in the month of January this year. And at the end of January 2017, more than 100,000 people in Yorkshire were in contact with mental health services. Anna Crossley has been to meet one young man from Keighley who's been sectioned twice and has been the subject of ridicule as a result.
I'm in a nut house. I'm a psycho. I'm a loony. I'm in the loony bin. I'm chewing crayons. I'm licking windows. These are real things that people have said.
So I like going through these actually.
Although it's been several years since Nick was detained under the Mental Health Act, he still remembers the cruel taunts. When he was hospitalised, the only way he could express his feelings was through art. Drawing and painting provided calm at a time when he was surrounded by chaos.
There were men beating other men up, and then there were this guy here cutting himself, and then people dragged him by the police, sometimes in handcuffs, holding the legs, just put them in this padded room. It was just horrendous. I was like, this is in the dark ages, this. I just don't believe it.
The number of people being detained under the Mental Health Act has increased over the past 5 years, especially here in Yorkshire. Now, no one knows exactly why this is, although health professionals say they are concerned, not just about sectioning, but about the state of mental health services as a whole.
We have to be really sure that the person who is detained under the Mental Health Act, needs that because either they're a risk to themselves or to others, and there's not any other alternatives available. And we need to make sure that we're really properly following the strict guidance that's laid out in legislation to make sure that we're not detaining people unlawfully or when there could be an alternative.
Although some people clearly need to be detained for their own safety, some experts believe that it's a last resort that's being used too readily. With 1 in 4 of us now experiencing mental health problems in any 1 year, it's an issue that we can no longer ignore. Anna Crossley, BBC Look North.
Watching that report with me is Bob Howe from Leeds Samaritans, which has been helping people with mental health problems for more than 50 years. Bob, are you surprised to see that more people have been sectioned in Yorkshire than other parts of England?
Well, as a charity, it's not really within our expertise to interpret how the Mental Health Act might be applied across the various regions. But I think it's rather interesting that the Health Select Committee recently reported and said that the findings of the National Health Service Suicide Prevention Strategy from 2012 is not being applied consistently or effectively as it might be. And I think here in Leeds, we now have a very successful suicide prevention strategy backed by the local authority. And I think that this may actually lead to intervention at an earlier stage and to try and keep people safe.
So you're saying it's not necessarily a negative thing, it's keeping people safe?
No, it can be viewed both ways, but I do think that intervention at an early stage is actually following through with the ethos of the actual strategy.
What kind of concerns do people have when they call the Samaritans?
It can be anything, wide-ranging, anything that you think could concern anybody. It could be relationships, it could be money, it could be stress at work, family breakups, anything. And we encourage people to get in touch with us, to call that free line number 116 123 sooner rather than later. If they feel they need help, we'll be there for them 24/7.
Do you feel that politicians are doing enough to bridge the gap between when someone is asking for help to the point of where they are at crisis, as we saw there with Nick?
I think there's been a big wake-up over the last 12 months, really, and the call to action. We've launched a campaign, Local Action Saves Lives, and we've been lobbying candidates in the forthcoming general election to try and encourage them to put this much higher up the agenda, and I think it's proving to be the case.
Bob, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Next